Hi guys, welcome to this essay on teenage girls in Pidgin English. So I'm going to take you through an essay style response to the idea of teenage girls being presented in this novel by Stephen Kelman. So I'll take you through what I've written and perhaps some of the ideas as to why I've written in that way. So as for my introduction, often in literature teenage girls are depicted as vulnerable and dominated by men. So in novels such as A Christmas Carol, women are not the people in charge. They live in a male society and often they're quite vulnerable and are controlled by men in a lot of ways. So, arguably, in Kelman's Pidgin English, he's seeking to challenge this view and he perhaps criticises a society that allows men to take charge. And I've used that word arguably there to show the examiner that I'm thinking about lots of different things and perhaps this is what Kelman is trying to do. So I'll go into my essay now and I'll explain some of the words I've used as well, so in case you want to make a note of those. So firstly, Harrison lives in a matriarchal household as his father is back home in Ghana. Matriarchal means that the mother is in charge or the woman is in charge, just like patriarchal means that men are in charge. Mama becomes both the breadwinner and the disciplinarian, which are not necessarily traditional positions for women to hold. So breadwinner means somebody who brings the money, or in old fashioned terms, the bread home for the family, and disciplinarian is the person who puts the discipline onto the family. So Mama sounds Harry for his use of offensive language and is used throughout the novel as a threat by Lydia. So obviously that shows that she's quite strong. And perhaps it's talking about women as well as teenage girls. So maybe I'm talking about girls as well. It also sort of links that idea to Lydia and the fact that Lydia is taking charge there as well, and she's imitating perhaps what Mama is doing, and it might be worth saying that in that paragraph to bring it back to the essay title. In contrast, Papa can only comment on the children's behaviour through the phone, and ultimately his messages are of love and concern. So if you remember earlier on, Agnes, Harry's sister, is quite poorly, so you'd imagine, and from what we've read, that most of those phone call messages are about Agnes and trying to keep everybody calm. Equally, the mother of the dead boy seems to challenge nature as she guards the blood in the opening of her novel, willing it to stay so that motherhood cannot be taken from her. So you've got this idea that the women in this novel are so strong they think they can control nature. So perhaps a final sentence on the end of that paragraph would have been really helpful there to bring it back to the title of the essay. Although the novel's protagonist and narrative is male-dominated, Kelman uses a script style to report the speech. This might depict the idea that all the characters' voices are relevant and accurately represent the ideals of women in the novel. So if it had just been reported speech, perhaps, that Harry had embedded into what he was writing, it might be that he's not reported it in quite the right way. And actually, you could argue that even though he's reported it in this way, that is still the same thing. But use that idea to bring your essay together. Whatever you say, as long as you say perhaps or this might be because and you explain your answer, then the examiner is not going to take any marks away from you. So Lydia is a forceful character who uses her position as the elder child to dominate Harry. Harry describes her as roaring, which suggests she's not a meek and delicate woman. So meek means that somebody's quite quiet, and if she's roaring, she's clearly not quiet. However, she does succumb to peer pressure at the hands of other girls, so she falls into that idea of peer pressure. Makita holds an iron over her face, stating you're either with us or against us. Although Lydia is pressured into taking part in criminal activities, she is able to stand up for herself and save Harry from Makita's domination. She states that at least my boyfriend isn't a murderer, which causes Makita to split proper quiet. So even though Lydia is bullied in a lot of ways by Makita and Makita is in control, when she needs to, she actually is the one who can silence Makita. Perhaps Kelman uses Lydia's character to demonstrate the power struggles felt by girls in particular. Although Lydia seems to struggle with making friends, she is still able to distinguish between right and wrong, and she saves Harry later in the novel by filming the confrontation between him and Killer. However, she is unable to save him from his inevitable death towards the end of the novel. So actually, although she can save him sometimes, she can't always save him. And that actually might be a point that you'd bring into an essay about growing up. Or about leaving that teenage life behind, is that you can't always be saved by somebody else. So this phenomena is explored further by Kelman's use of Makita as a violent and volatile female character. Although she's able to burn Lydia, she had already had her own hands burned by Crossfire, so perhaps Kelman is demonstrating the cycle of abuse that happens in deprived areas and how gangs cause different people to become violent and brutal. And by bringing that point in, you've spoken not just about the teenage girls, but you've spoken about sort of the wider novel as well. You've noticed that idea of deprivation. Makita, although strong, is still dominated by men. She is still controlled by these men around her. Equally, Auntie Sonia and Mama appear to be dominated by Julius, who seems to use their money to fund his criminal lifestyle. And this type of male domination is accentuated by Chanel and Makita's ruckus on the playground. So Crossfire tells Killer that he made this shit, suggesting that it's the fault of men's actions that cause women to behave in this horrific way. And again, links to that idea of gang violence permeating or getting through to every bit of society. And don't worry about using swear words within your essay if they are part of a quotation. You could analyse the language in that quotation if it's something you remember. Overall, on the surface, the women in the novel appear to be strong and subvert the traditional gender roles, but it would appear that they're still repressed in a modern society. So even though on the surface, even though like in our introduction we said, well, they're not traditional because they're not meek and they're not mild and they're not vulnerable, actually, if you reflect on what we've just said, they are still repressed and suppressed by the men in the society around them. By using female characters who are both black and white, Kelman suggests that all women are affected. Although Mama is able to provide for her family, she still has to pay Julius in order to keep her family safe. So, yes, she's strong, yes, she's a breadwinner, but actually, she still has to give her money away in order to survive. Poppy Morgan is the only character who might reflect the innocent females or the meek and mild females, the females that don't get into trouble. However, like the white girlfriend of the dead boy, she is left to suffer at the end of the novel. So, because her boyfriend, even though they're only 11, dies, she would suffer from that. And obviously, we don't see that far, but we can assume that that would happen at the end of the novel. So, what we've done there is taken different elements from the novel and put them together to answer that question, sort of analysing ideas about structure, thinking about what Kelman is trying to do with the teenage girls that he chooses to put into his essay. And obviously we did have that paragraph early on about Mama, and I think it could be made a little bit more relevant to the idea of teenage girls by saying that Lydia is reflecting what Mama does. I hope you found that helpful. Email me if you have any questions. Thank you.